happy Friday. It is another day for Mavens of Manufacturing, and I'm super excited because we have Jennifer Chavez here, and we are going to be talking about workforce development and hiring the best talent and actually retaining them once you get them through the door. So, Jennifer, welcome. Thank you for joining Mavens of Manufacturing. How are you?
Hi, Megan. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here. Appreciate it. I'm doing great.
I'm super excited because I met you through Kathy, and Kathy is doing wonderful things. So if you don't know who Kathy Gallowitz is, be sure to check her out. She has Vanguard veterans, and she looks into how companies can really hire veterans. And I think that mission is just really, really awesome. And she also wrote a book that I still have to crack open because I haven't had a chance to crack open, but it's a book about how we can better support our veterans just like they supported us with their sacrifices. So be sure to look into that. But let's get back to Jennifer. So Jennifer, can you just tell us about yourself and how you got involved in kind of like the recruiting area for manufacturing?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Megan. After a 23-year career with a little company called CVS Health, where I was focused mostly on mail order and pharmacy and healthcare and consumer products, I had survived 7 mergers and acquisitions there until I didn't. And then I found myself in a career pivot and had to kind of pick myself up by my bootstraps and figure out what was I going to do next. And when I really thought about all of the things that I had done that I loved as a leader or as a volunteer, it really was all the activity around recruiting, mentoring people, helping them find their, next role, introducing them, networking, all that fun stuff. So I decided to buy a recruiting franchise, and I had a non-compete when I first started. And so I was like, okay, what am I going to do? A friend of mine and I started the businesses together, and she was in industrial manufacturing, and she was really busy and needed help. So that's kind of how I got my start in industrial manufacturing. And I've been doing it ever since, and really just kind of fell in love with manufacturing because they really need my help so much and are so appreciative of it. I've had great rapport and relationships with my clients that has led me to a lot of success in recruiting. So I haven't looked back.
From healthcare, was there any like challenges or hurdles you had to overcome switching industries? Because I know they're connected, right? Like we manufacture products for healthcare, but the lingo and the jargon is different as well. So was there anything that you had to like overcome or do to really get a grasp on industrial manufacturing?
Yeah, for sure. Although, I had, in fairness, with mail order pharmacy, and, we did a lot of production for sure at CVS, and a lot of retail facing stuff and logistics and all kinds of fun things. But the manufacturing environment is a little different, and certainly all the jargon and industry stuff is completely different. But I really learned a lot from my candidates and from my clients, really just asking great questions. What does that term mean? Help me understand. And they have a lot of, sometimes their layers are really thin. They don't have a lot of HR. They don't have a lot of recruiters necessarily. And so it's just really, you kind of become an extension of their team. So you really engage with them a lot and learn a lot about their business along the way. And I try to sit in on all my interviews with my clients and help support them as well. So I just continue to learn more and more about them. And then I become an expert on them and everything that's, in their business. So it just sort of comes naturally, I think, over time. I've been doing this for several years now, so I've learned a lot about it, but it was definitely a little bit different, and the environment is slightly different, and, the jargon is different. So definitely an education.
Are there specific industries that you focus on within manufacturing? So where are the areas that seem to be struggling the most for finding talent?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the technical, both sales and engineering side of the business, those two pieces, that really takes a lot of time and knowledge over a period of years to gain and be really successful. And I find that a lot of my clients will reach out to me for those two particular types of roles. So, someone who's either been an engineer and has transitioned over to sales, or is technically inclined enough to understand the engineering side. A lot of my clients build engineered solutions for their clients. And so really having that level of expertise. There isn't a lot of it out there, and a lot of it's retiring and going away. And so being able to, really know that those two key positions, require a lot of talent and expertise that's kind of hard to find.
Mhm.
Figuring out how to help them with those positions is really the big challenge.
So I know there's a lot of companies that are struggling right now to find a variety of different talent to come through the doors. Is it just as hard as is it just as hard for recruiters to find that talent too? Like, what sort of processes do you go through to make sure you're connecting the right talent with the right company?
Sure. We have lots of recruiting secrets. So
Oh.
yeah, we do things a little differently sometimes than our clients. And a lot of times that's why they call us. They just don't necessarily have time to do it in the way, that we might. Like a
Mhm.
big company might have, several desks of recruiters that could just call people all day. You have to go out there and find the talent. They just don't necessarily apply. And I think that's what happens a lot of times is traditional recruiting. You open a requisition, right? And you think everyone who's amazing is going to come apply, and they don't. And it's even hard to just get people's attention sometimes. So, I'm out there looking for keepers all day long and finding them and keeping them in my network, and
Mhm.
building those relationships with people over time. And I've placed a lot of people in this industry too, and I've done, worked with some amazing companies, and those people are super happy. So they want to refer other great people. So, you use your network and you're able to leverage it, when you're in recruiting where you're a company and you don't have necessarily time to do all of that. And that's sometimes how we're successful when, maybe a company's typical strategy isn't as, we're just going about it differently. We're going out there and saying, who is the right person? Let me go find them. And let me tell them all about how amazing this wonderful company is and why they should come work for you. And so, being able to attract people in that kind of a way and have an interpersonal conversation with them and help them understand why they're a good fit and vice versa. That's the art of recruiting. And I think that's what really makes a difference is, that's just the first of many conversations I have with
Yeah.
candidates, and I'm going to keep on going conversations with them. So a lot of times I can call someone and go, hey, remember that candidate I presented last time? I think they're perfect for this job. They weren't perfect for that one, but, and I'm able to kind of know who's out there and what's available in the market, and maybe companies where people, changes have happened and people are unhappy. I have lots of
Mhm.
intel from talking to people all day long. So that's, I think, I say they're secrets, but it's kind of common sense, but it is just really, that's what we spend our time doing, and companies don't
Yeah.
always have resources for that.
Well, I do want to talk about like the documentation that's involved with the hiring process. So you on the interviewee side, you have the resume, and then on the interviewer side, you have the job description,
Yeah.
which I've seen frustrations around both. So like with job descriptions,
Yeah.
a lot of them are outdated because HR groups can be small, especially in small to medium sized companies,
Right.
and HR representatives tend to wear many hats. So like updating those job descriptions can be difficult. And then on the resume side of things, someone might have a really, really great resume, but it doesn't really match up when it comes to them coming in and actually doing the work. So it's there's kind of like a disconnect, especially I guess the example I have is like if someone goes to a 4-year college and they
Hmm.
get all of the academic stuff to like pass all that, and then they actually hit industry because they haven't had that hands-on experience yet, they kind of struggle a little bit once they get into industry.
For sure.
So
Yeah.
from your point of view, what advice do you have to overcome some of these challenges? One, on the employer side, like how can they
Sure.
really update their job description so that they're attracting that right talent? And then on the
Mhm.
potential employee side, what can they do a little bit differently with their resume so that it
Yeah.
stands out and gets to the top of the pile? So it's a two-part question.
Sure, and I'll address both of them. I think the answer is, at a summary level, the same for both. It's tell your story. And
Mhm.
I tell that to my clients and I tell that to the candidates because that's what I do when I'm on the phone. I learn their story and I tell their story to the candidate and to the client about the candidate. And that's really, it's the stuff that isn't on the resume or on the job description that I think if you include those kinds of things in your job description and your resume, you're going to do a better job of attracting the right kind of person. I think of it kind of like I tell people, think of the AI that goes on behind the scenes if you're just a computer and you're just doing an ATS, automatic tracking system or applicant tracking system is, what a lot of companies use to take in resumes and match them to jobs. And so
Mhm.
it's the computer doing the work, but you take your own human eye to it and say, when I'm applying to a job on my LinkedIn profile, on my resume, if you're not customizing that to that particular opportunity and to that particular client, I say this to people on my resume, you would never know that my last job, I managed 21 IT projects for my client as basically a BA. It had nothing to do with my member services, customer experience job, but IT was a part of, our organization, our CRM, and we had to manage those things. So, if I was applying for a job being a BA, that'd be a great experience to put on there. But not most people don't have that kind of detail or time or space on a resume. So you're not going to have all those anyway. So
Mhm.
just take a few minutes and customize and show them what it was you did at that particular company job that is aligned with what they're looking for. That's really what, at the end of the day, a company is looking for in a candidate is, do you have the experience doing this work and can you demonstrate to me that you have? So it makes
Mhm.
it a lot easier for people to match up if they're putting that information out there. And same on a job description. Your story about why you're an amazing company to work for, those are the job descriptions and the ads that candidates respond to. A lot of times when I post, I will try to post something in there that kind of gives them that insight into the company. And I get a lot more responses than I do when I just post a standard job description. If my clients let me be a little creative and, use some of the things that I learn about them. Like, we have one client who finally told me, goes, oh, a really great benefit we have is we work 980s. So, every 2 weeks, they get
Mm.
every other Friday off and they do it culturally as a company. And that was the clincher that helped me, match them up with the right candidate because somebody was really looking for, some work-life balance and flexibility. So I help people pull out those little elements of their stories and teach them to tell them a little differently and better. And that's the best advice I have for both sides, for candidates and clients, is just, tell a little bit more of your story so people can get to know you more as a whole person. Not just, the job's important, but culture's important, your fit, who you are as a person, what other things you bring to the table that, may not be on your resume, are all
Mhm.
valuable things.
So it sounds like with authenticity, genuineness, share your story, core values, behind the scenes, those are good tips for companies to really think about in terms of how to attract the best talent, also maybe possibly retain them. Are there any other
Yeah.
things that they should consider when they're going through that hiring process? And once they do hire an employee, do you have a different set of like do's and don'ts
Yeah.
on how to retain those employees?
Yeah, retention starts in your process when you're hiring before you ever even talk to the candidate, and it's everything in between and after they begin.
Hmm.
Everything's marketing and branding, but you have to also be authentic and follow up with those things too. So it's making sure, on the first day, I have a special thing I do, and I order crumble cookies for my clients and the candidate on their first day and make a big deal about it and get the team together. Those celebrations and those, bringing of the team together to, have those milestone events. Those
Hmm.
kinds of things are important and they matter. And, people want to feel welcomed. And, when you check in with them on a regular basis is another thing that I do. I check in with my candidates and how are things going, and making sure, I tell my clients, you've got to be touching base with them too. You have to be building that relationship with them. It's, definitely a two-way street. Ask how they're doing, making sure that they're getting the things that they needed. From an
Mhm.
onboarding perspective, there's a transition period. And if you successfully complete that transition period, you are much more likely to retain that person for a much longer period of time. And if they look back on their first day and their moments very fondly, and gosh, wow, that was so special and amazing. Those are the stories that people tell when they retire at the end of their careers, because it made a difference, and it made them stick, and it made it memorable. So, I think some of those things are, kind of typical onboarding, right? You have to make sure that you have a touch base with them every so often, and all of that. But just, maybe have a mentor, have, someone that can be there to help that individual answer questions about,
Mhm.
that they might not know. They might not want to ask their boss, but they're trying to learn the culture and figure it out and fit in. So, peer mentors are also a really good idea. But a lot of it is just, kind of, communication, making sure that you're keeping the lines of communication open, and
Yeah.
having regular touch base with your employees. And you just, treat them well, and they're going to stay. And people leave, usually leaders and cultures that are not healthy. That's typically what
Yeah.
I hear most often. So if you're taking care of your people and engaging with them, and caring about them, you're probably going to be fine.
Yeah. Well, you'd be surprised like how many stories I've heard about people coming into a work culture that they thought was a healthy one, and then like they do certain things for so long, and then something happens where a switch goes off, and then it's like their true colors show. And
Yeah,
some employees feel stuck and feel like they can't leave that situation, where I'm always like, no, leave the situation. You can find a better place to work. And then you run into companies who they might be smaller companies and they might not think about the whole onboarding process because they're just too small and they don't have the strategy and processes in place. So when they do hire someone new, it's kind of like fend for yourself and figure it out as you go. And I talked to a woman and she's like, yeah, I didn't realize for the first 6 months I was with the company, they had a Slack channel where they talked about like retirement parties and internal events and external events. She's like, I had no idea until somebody retired. And he is like, you didn't know I was retiring? It's in a Slack channel. And she's like, I didn't even know you had a Slack channel. What are you talking about? So they had to like, and it
yeah.
wasn't like done on purpose. They just didn't think
It
about
just
it. And
wasn't part of the process.
yeah,
Yeah,
and then you have the really good companies who the moment they walk from the door, and like you said, the moment they retire, they're like making them feel like they belong in every aspect of the culture and the processes and the conversations and the success of the business. So I
right.
think that's some really good things for even leadership to think about, because I think you get to a point where sometimes leadership is completely out of the loop. And I don't think that's a good idea, because
Right.
leadership has such a huge role in companies. And if you're a new employee and you never see the president or the CEO or some of the top level executives, are you really part of that company then if they're not? Like, I remember my dad, I worked with him a long time ago, and one of the
Right.
things he always did was he would take time to walk around the shop floor and talk to people and ask how they are, and that made a huge
Absolutely.
difference. So
Absolutely.
yeah. We do have a couple of comments. Hank is here. He says hi from and the girls. They're on spring break. Hello, Peyton and Aiden. Thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, feel free to text them in the comment section. We also have Rebecca. Hey, ladies. Hi, Rebecca. I almost wore the shirt that you gave me today, and then I wore this one, and I should have wore it and showed that off. And then we have a LinkedIn user. They're too busy chasing their numbers and running around with hair on fire. Yes. And if you could drop your name, for whatever reason, your settings are not letting LinkedIn show off who you are. So if you could just let me know who you are, I'd love to say hi. Thank you. So speaking of leadership, Do you work with them as well too, or are you just working with HR departments?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I'm glad you asked it because it's one of the most important things for me is to directly meet with the hiring leader. And I know sometimes policies, HR doesn't always want to do that, certain
Mhm.
companies. And what I share with them is it really is super helpful for me to understand what's not on the job description, what that leader is like.
Mhm.
What are they specifically looking for that may not be on the resume? Why did the last person who was in the role leave? Where did they go? These are questions that candidates are going to want to know. And the more information that I can give them up front and help tell the story and weave the story, the better it is always going to go. And I'm always going to find more quickly the right candidate. And it's almost always just like magic. As soon as I meet with the hiring leader and really understand, then I can really find the perfect person for them because I understand them better.
Mhm.
So I think that meeting with the hiring leaders is really crucial, and I always encourage that in all cases. But when I always say everything people always leads back to HR anyway. So I really do love working with HR, and I have some really fantastic HR partnerships. And I work with companies however they need to. Everyone has a different process and a way of working, and I'm flexible to their
Mhm.
styles and what needs to happen. But the hiring leader is the person that's going to make or break the retention and all of the things, and they have to be invested in that person. So I think
Yeah.
it just always makes sense to
What are
include.
your what are your recommendations to companies? Because I've worked at a couple of these where they would delete all of the negative reviews and comments on the job. What are your recommendations in handling situations like that? Because I feel like deleting them, you're kind of covering something up and you're hesitant to improve yourself if you don't embrace those kind of things head on, you
Yeah,
know?
well,
Like,
I come from a customer experience background where, feedback
okay.
is a gift and, you really have, in my opinion, I tend to agree with you. I understand the kind of need to manage your branding and marketing. And I did work in customer care. So I do know that sometimes, what people say is not necessarily reflective of what really happened either. But somewhere in the middle is it's the customer's experience, it's their perspective. And I think if you see that and listen to it, however you decide to deal with that externally, I think what's more important is you have to be open to it. You want to be better. I want to be with companies who want to be better and who want to leverage my advice and help to help them be better all of the time. I'm
Yeah.
always being, looking how I can be better or do things differently. So I try to align myself with companies where culturally that makes more sense. I also have
Mhm.
kind of a red face test. Like I don't want to really work with or be a part of companies. It's all going to come out in the wash. If you have a culture that's negative or bad, people are going to know that. And then it's going to be hard to hire for you. You can build a
Yeah.
negative reputation. And I, have seen that happen with some, folks out in the marketplace because if you don't manage your candidate process and your onboarding process, like I said, from, retention, it starts before you ever talk to them. And candidates evaluate how you treat them through the entire process. And I've had a lot of candidates, if they aren't treated well, they just won't ever, come back to that company again. And they may speak negatively about them out on posts or,
Mhm.
whatever. So I think I understand why there's a need to do that. But I think just being, open to that feedback and trying to improve your process will just help you with long-term retention. So I just don't believe in hiding it because, like I said,
Yeah.
it'll come out
It's
somewhere.
just gonna go. I think the best place to get it in especially in a machine shop is right on the shop floor because those are like the most direct and honest individuals ever, and they don't sugarcoat anything. And
Yep,
from my
they'll tell you
experience,
how
they're
it
just
is.
like they let you, and the thing is they know when things go wrong right when they happen. So they always have like the best strategies and plans on how to fix things because things have to keep running on the shop floor to be productive. So like I'm always like trying to keep my ears open and hear the vibe and energy from the shop floor because if it's not a great place to work, they'll let you know.
100%. Yep. No bones about it.
So that LinkedIn user was Greg with CMMS Radio. LinkedIn keeps me in the shadows. Apparently so, Greg. I don't know why you want to be left in the shadows. I think you're a great human being. And then Rebecca said your shirt is great, is a great choice. And thank you, Rebecca. I appreciate that. So if you could eliminate some inefficiencies in the hiring process, what would those be?
That's a really, really good question. I think that what I recommend to my clients is by them allowing me to be part of the interviewing process, I'm really able to be way more efficient in moving the process forward. If you really are interested and ready to hire, I'm going to present you with a few very quality candidates, and you should be able to, interview them and hopefully react to them and be responsive. And if you can do that, then the hiring process is going to just be super efficient. I've had 2 clients recently that hired the first 2 candidates that I, gave to them. And I just tell them be open to that, because I've already sifted through hundreds of other candidates and all the frustrations you might have as a hiring leader in a typical hiring process. I'm hopefully already have gone through much of that, and I'm bringing someone that I think is really a good fit for you. You're hopefully not going to find out that they're, not a good fit during the interview. They may not be perfect, but, they may not, be the best one for the job, but they're going to be a high quality candidate. So I think customers have to kind of adjust maybe their expectations a little bit on, what does efficiency look like? If the process is going to be different, then you might need to react to it a little differently to make sure you capture that top talent. Because otherwise, if you don't and you aren't ready, then a lot of times they may take other positions. And so if you have someone quality, they go fast.
So I know someone personally who's been struggling right now to find a really good position, and one of the things that they keep running into, like they're a go-getter, they are a fast learner, they're willing to put the work in, they're willing to go through training, and the roadblock seems to be the years of experience that they don't have. And I feel like that can be a huge limitation for companies, because some people learn at quicker paces than other paces. And with the advancements in technologies and how fast paced things keep moving and updating, and like there's like a new technology, it seems every 2 to 3 years now, instead of like the traditional 5 years. Like it just seems like things are changing that fast pace. What
Right.
sort of strategies can manufacturers really adapt to hire candidates that are ready to hit the ground running? But what are also some other things that they can do to be supportive to those employees so that they can continue to learn and be at the level they need to be within that company? And I know it might be a little bit different based on what the company is manufacturing and what sort of technologies they have in the facility, but like I feel like it should be a two-way street,
I would agree. I would say that I think City of Phoenix is doing some of this, which I think is really great. And I think there can be more of this in manufacturing. And I think we're going to have to probably continue to expand things like internships, apprenticeships, and like City of Phoenix is doing partnerships where they're creating a training center to be able to give people and partner with companies, it's semiconductor, for instance, and give them some of the basic skills that those individuals need to be successful in a manufacturing environment. And, how the technologies and stuff change so fast where they can keep more, up to date. So I think things like that, or on a more micro scale within a company, being able to support things like that, and, being able to have mentorship programs where there's going to have to be a point where with the talent retiring, and you not always are the gaps going to be able to be filled with someone who already has the experience or knowledge, unless you're willing to pay for it. And not everybody has an unlimited budget. So the reality is going to be that the more, types of programs that you create where you can help bridge that gap, and where the community can help bridge that gap as well. I think that's going to be really crucial for manufacturing success long term.
Do you have any, as a recruiter, do you have any partnerships with such programs that help younger generations with the soft skills? Because one of the complaints that I have heard with younger generations, because they're so uh, because they're like the digital natives, they know how to do technology fine. And I'm only going by personal experience with my daughter. So she was so used to texting and being on her phone that when she started interviewing for jobs, she would freak out because talking to a human face to face that she didn't know was a hurdle for her. And I'm like, it's just a human being with, but
Right.
I kind of get that being an introvert, but I think some of those soft skills are lost when we're behind a screen all day. So depending on what you're doing, you need to problem solve, critically think, you need communication skills, you need presentation
Right.
skills. Do you have resources for younger generations to really look into those and improve them so that they can be a better candidate for some of these manufacturers?
It's a really great point and a good question. I'm not sure if I have any specific resources. I do point people, there are some good things on LinkedIn, some great training resources available, classes. I mean, you can learn anything on YouTube as well. But
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I just also encourage, I think, some of the basics are that these, and I have a son in the same situation as well, two digital native sons. And so, I always encourage him, like, I'm a recruiter. So I'm like, well, kind of sit and listen to me when I talk to people on the phone and, kind of hear how some of those conversations go. So you can, kind of learn some of those things. But if you don't have access to a recruiter in your home, short of that, it's a good point and a gap. And I don't know that there's a great answer for it, but I do try to help both my clients and candidates. Good recruiters will give you some good coaching as well. So, if you can get connected with some recruiters early in your career, there might be some free advice that you can get that way. I know I try to help all of my candidates, whether I can help them actively with a job or not. I give them tools, tips, resources, tip sheets, things like that on how they can, do a good job in the interview. I do interview coaching if they're going to have an interview with my client, just to kind of try to help them, make sure that they put their best foot forward. So,
well, I think it ties back to your mentorship comment as well, too. I think companies should really consider, if they don't have one set up already, really consider starting a mentorship program. And it can go both ways, right? It doesn't necessarily always have to be the older generation that's mentoring the younger generation. The younger generation can actually mentor some of the older generations and move things along pretty
I have
quickly.
reverse mentors that help me with all kinds of techie things that are not my forte, and I will help them in return with anything that they want, interviewing skills, whatever. But absolutely.
My little boys are always telling me something new about technology, and I'm like, you are 5 and 6. What are you doing? Or 5 and 7. What are you doing? Like, I feel dumb now that you showed me up on this, but it's pretty cool and fascinating. One of the newest things well, it's not new, it's been around forever, but with the introduction of ChatGPT, AI is like blowing up everywhere. And I was at an industrial marketing conference, and the keynote was focusing mostly on AI and how quickly it's been being adapted. And I think he said within the last 3 months, it boosted up to 33% from 400 million or something like that. I have to check my stats, but it's just insane how fast this technology is being adapted. So is AI in recruiting? And if so, how is it being used for helping companies find the right talent?
That's a really great question. And we have been talking about and working with AI for some time now. So, ever since I started my franchise. So we are, I would say, early adopters trying to figure it out. And we have, 200 some franchise offices, and we all kind of get together regularly and share what we're doing
Okay.
in different offices and different tools and things. So it's really interesting to kind of hear how people use it. And our franchise also brought several AI experts in recruiting and outside of recruiting, to come talk with us during our summer sessions and, keep us abreast of, kind of new things that are happening. And, we use it, if I use it regularly every day. I use it a lot for like how to capture somebody's attention, either on LinkedIn to reach out to a
Oh.
candidate or
Mhm.
trying to reach out to a client and tell them about an amazing candidate that I have, or, to try to get new business and really try to customize it. And, I will edit it myself and things like that. It has to make sense, but it's great for brainstorming and ideas and creativity and ideas for job descriptions as well. Like I mentioned earlier, great tool to just kind of give it a fresh sound, tell it what kind of voice or you want it to have about how you want your
Mhm.
job description to read. And, it can be used for everything to also finding candidates. There's some tools out there that, leverage finding people and through, social media and other, means and stuff, contact info. There's just all kinds of things that, and you name it, and they probably have some sort of an AI tool that will help you with it in recruiting. So it's sort of unlimited, but it's kind of fun to just sort of watch all the iterations and,
Yeah.
keep track of it. I don't, I use just a couple of tools, but a lot of other offices use a lot of them and are pretty amazing. And I'm in awe. I'm just trying
Yeah.
to figure it all out still.
I think there's a couple tools out there that you can drop a job description in and it will get rid of any biased language that's in there, and make it more gender neutral so you're not unconsciously going towards one gender or the other, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
Because I was actually at a conference and there was a recruiter there doing a presentation,
Hmm.
and she pulled in 6 candidates for the CEO of a company to look at. And he turned all of the candidates down, like, nope, I don't want this. So then she looked through each resume because she's like, all of these people are qualified for this position. What is going on? So then she removed any kind of identification information from the resumes and just resent them back without telling the CEO what she did. And he picked like 3 or 4 out of that pile. It was the same list of candidates. Just she removed all of the identifying like information that could have gave them a leg up, or so it just kind of showed how unconscious bias can really affect someone's decision making process, which I thought was really interesting and a really cool study that
Well,
she did. But yeah.
that's cool.
So
I agree with that. And I do that when I'm marketing candidates. I don't use any gender identification terms. So people cannot know when I'm presenting someone if I'm talking about a male or a female.
yeah. Well, and she also took out any kind of education information. So, like, if
Mhm,
they went to a specific college, if they had a
mhm,
certain type of degree, she also took out, I think, the years of experience that they had and just stuck with the skill sets and
mhm.
some of the qualifications, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah,
So it's
that's
weird what
cool.
our minds do when we're in a certain situations and we get used to things. It's so weird. Well, Jennifer, looking forward, what do you think needs to change in the hiring process to really better address the labor shortages that we're seeing here in manufacturing?
That's a great question. What I tell people is expectation setting, I think, is what generally changes when a client has difficulty finding someone that's a great fit to
Mhm.
when they do. And it's usually that something about their expectation has changed. And sometimes that can be salary, sometimes that can be location, sometimes that can be education or experience. But I think if you approach, a lot of my clients will say, just find me the talent that has the experience that I'm looking for and we'll kind of figure out some of those other things. And that's usually the best approach. Find the best available talent, and not just what's available, what's out there. Go get the best talent. And then when you talk to the best talent, then you can kind of figure out whether those other things are truly important or not. Sometimes they are, and sometimes they aren't. And so I think, just being open and flexible to what that might look like. And I think that is typically what I would recommend is there's not a lot that has to change, but you might have to be a little bit more open and flexible. And there's some really amazing people who just figure stuff out. And sometimes you have to be willing to take that leap of faith and give that person a chance. And I would say you will find loyalty in a lot more places and a lot more retention when you truly give people that hand up and a chance and, make that difference in their career and teach them, trade or new part of the industry and give them that opportunity. They're going to be really grateful and they're going to stay for a long time in most cases. So,
yeah. 100% agree. Well, Jennifer, if anybody has any questions for you, or if they're struggling to find the right candidates for the positions that they have available, what is the best way to connect with you or get a hold of you, and where should they go?
Sure, absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn all day long, so certainly connect with me there. I'm listed on LinkedIn as Jennifer Chavez, MBA, GRN Moon Valley. It's a lot. My website is grnmoonvalley.com, and GRN stands for Global Recruiters Network. It's a mouthful. So, but I'd be happy to help anybody that has any needs, even if you just want to chat and learn a little bit more about what I do or talk industry tips and just network a little bit. I'm always up for that. And anyway, reach out to me that way, or my phone number is 623-387-8995 extension 1. So any of those would be great.
And you also help Kathy with connecting veterans to opportunities as well. So if you are a veteran and you're struggling finding a new opportunity, make sure you reach out to Jennifer as well as Kathy, because they do great things for veterans who are trying to look for something else to do. Jennifer, if you had one big ask for our audience, what would your big ask be for them?
My big ask would be to pay it forward, help somebody out, help them find an opportunity, give them a hand up, mentor them, help them. Let's bring up this next generation and just rock it in manufacturing.
I love that. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for tuning in. For all of those who tuned in and dropped comments in the section, thank you. I appreciate all of you. It is March. It is Women's History Month. So make sure you are going out there and making history yourselves. If you're a woman in engineering and manufacturing, we need to represent the ladies so that we can pull more in. I just did a talk yesterday where women are only representing like 16% on a global scale for engineering. So we definitely got to get that number up there. I'm just super competitive. I'm not trying to push all the guys out. I'm just trying to get more women in. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. I hope you have a great weekend. Stay tuned because we have a word from our sponsor, and I will see you next time. Bye, everybody. This episode of Mavens of Manufacturing has been sponsored by Z Ink Solutions. Z Ink Solutions. This isn't your grandmother's copywriting service. We provide copywriting and copy editing services that provide impactful text and memorable storytelling for a variety of brands and industries. Contact us today at zinkSolutions.com. That's z-inksolutions.com.